I'm here with Nazar Vincent. He's the principal of Attitash Design and Construction for Residential, the principal of Avatar Design and Construction for Commercial, and Bridgewater for Investor Funds and Development. I'm glad to have you here. I want to have a lot to talk about. I'm
Yes,
excited
I'm
about what you're
excited.
going on. You have over a 20-year track record of development and projects in New England. And I'm really excited to have you and have you talk about some of the things that you have going on because we were talking a little bit before, and this is some really groundbreaking stuff and some opportunities that are available not only for yourself, but many of your friends, family, investors along the way. And some of the questions I have for you, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know. But first off, I want to just ask you, how did you get involved in this? How did you get started in this in the first place?
Well, that goes really deep down to my teenage age, and so I come from Ukraine, well-known country now, sadly, but it's I'm glad that it's at least known because before I used to be called Russian, I used to be called you're from USSR, things of that stuff. But we won't go too much into the history of the world, but more into where I started. So, um, very primitive kind of beginning I had. You started in the pizza place. I started in pretty much being a carpenter.
Okay.
So at 13 years old, 14 years old, I found love between welding, metals, and wood. Simply working on machines, on round turning tables that create legs for tables, for chairs, things like that. I made furniture at 14 years old for our house and created actually the actual parquet flooring, not just installed it, but made it out of raw wood that I had to actually cut and season. So my experience with wood, it goes really deep into from all the way to from logging to actually having the wood and knowing how to harvest the wood and the kind of species that are necessary for different fabrication. So that started sort of very early, and till today, the smell of sawdust to me is just love.
Wow.
When I smell cedar, when cedar is being
Yeah.
cut, or fir, and that kind of love continued into my Attitash brand later on because if viewers know me or follow me or would take interest, they would find consistency in my design. And my design is very much involved with cedar and fir,
Hmm.
which is basically what I
Hmm.
was brought up with, and oak. Of course, I wouldn't skip that. Um, and so my designs are a lot of designs that I do are very organic. They don't have much stain on them. They don't have much cover on them. I don't enjoy seeing wood painted. I think it's like I take offense to that.
Hmm.
I don't know what example I could bring to the table, but it's maybe when a surgeon is asking to be operating with a painted knife, not an
Yeah,
organic
for
knife. It's
sure.
something that's just not unnatural. And so that kind of stayed with me. And then I started implementing metals with wood, and I started implementing stone with metal and wood. It made me into, I think, a very strong designer in the custom home building. And also, then the love came into why not do hotels? Why not do multifamily? Why not do commercial buildings? That slowly went into building schools and libraries and commercial sector and public sector. And later on, I understood that you have to be very versatile in business. Construction is a big component of real estate, and real estate would not exist without construction. And those two components were really they're like brother and sister. So really throughout my career, I understood that it's being in the construction world is not just construction. You really have to understand the real estate. You really understand the development side. You really have to understand staying ahead of the trend,
Hmm.
understanding the environment, environmental impacts, And then later on, I understood how financial world ties into all of this.
It's all important.
Because without money, right, as I said before, we all go home. So then I started getting into underwriting and things like that nature. And pretty much little by little, Bridgewater was born. And that is why the tag words underneath are longevity and reliability. Because what's important to our investors? Someone that you can be long terms with, right? If an investor is onboarding somewhere, and the investors we work with are, let's say for the most part, accredited investors.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be an accredited investor, but we'll talk about that later. But what's important is someone who understands simple investments.
Mm-hmm.
And the longevity to me was that whether you are in the beginning or you're a level 4 or level 5 investor, can you rely on who is taking your money, right? So I always wanted to understand my ways by putting myself in front of myself. So if I am asking someone to invest with me, I am asking myself, would you invest with you? And that's where the reliability comes from. Can I rely on myself?
Great point.
And so when I do things, I always say, I want, like it's almost reverse psychology, but I always say, I would rather have all fingers pointed at me, kind of like all guns to your head,
Mm-hmm.
rather than saying, but it's your fault. But, it's his fault. And, how many times we see, well, but if it wasn't for this, it would be this. I eliminate all of that. Every fund that we do, which we'll discuss later, I personally guarantee it.
Wow. Great stuff.
So
that's a great background and history. So if I'm hearing you correctly, your first love was actually working with wood, and I assume that was back in the Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
At what point, and how old were you when you came to the States? When you came to America?
So I came to the United States very early. It would have been nicer if I came earlier, but I think early enough to, let's just say at 15 and a half years old, I was basically told by my grandma, you have to pack up and go to U.S. A kid that hasn't been out of his own town ever. So I went from a third world country with dirt roads, with no running water or heat or toilet, to first world country, United States, New York. I landed in New York, JFK.
For sure.
And I remember like today, I was picked up by my stepfather and my mother at the time. My mother immigrated earlier to create a pathway for me. And I remember arriving in JFK and being greeted and driving in my mother's car. Was a Chrysler LeBaron, white, 2-door. I thought it was the most gorgeous car I've ever seen because I didn't see anything better before.
For sure.
And we're driving, I'm looking at these lights and I'm looking at these big green signs, the road signs. I've never seen anything like this. And I'm saying to myself, where am I? So I went from, call it 0 to 100. And went to school and not a lick of English or anything like that. That was frustrating. I remember learning how to speak English and my jaw hurt. That's when I understood that we look the way we pronounce things. Our facial features, like jaw lines and chin, depend on the language we speak.
For sure.
That's when I'm like, why does my jaw hurt? And that's the muscles that are working. So if I was to speak in Ukrainian right now, my muscles would not be the same that are being used. My face would look different if I stayed back in Ukraine. And again, that's a different topic, but it's interesting that you asked me this because I don't often think about this anymore because there's kids and business and things, and so it becomes very not really something that's on my mind. But I quickly understood within probably 2 years of being in school in United States. By the way, Nassau County, New York, Hicksville, New York is where I went to high school. That if I don't learn the language quick, especially pronunciation, I will not be able to blend in with the Americans. Okay, even though I'm American now, I will not be accepted in the business world. Nobody told me this. I grew up without a father. I want to make that clear. My mother always worked, so basically my grandma taught me how to work hard, and she always said, if you don't work, you don't eat, and if you sleep during the day, you're basically a waste of air.
Interesting.
She believed that day is for working, night is for sleeping. If the sun is up, you should be up.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
very
so-
it's interesting travel from one country to another that I've had. Yes,
It's very interesting, and I want to get into what you're doing now currently, but just one more question, because I find it fascinating, because I was born here, right? My grandfather was an immigrant, came from Russia, came from Poland. My grandmother Russia, my grandfather Poland, escaping the war, and I mean I have some basic understanding of that, but you don't know it unless you live it. Now, again, your circumstances are obviously different, but coming from another country, the perseverance to overcome the challenge of just coming from there to here and acclimating to America, right? I imagine that this gives you a lot of your drive and is part of your success today. And you landed in New York, right? The Big Apple. You grew up in Hicksville, New York, as you say, and just that whole transition from when you came to New York to the time you got here in Massachusetts and got started in development. Can you just give us a little bit of information on that?
So the drive, I actually thought about that a couple of times, and still till today, the story remains the same because I can't find anything else. People have asked me this: where does this hunger come from? Where does this drive come from? What is the reason? And for a while, I couldn't answer that. I was like, well, that's what a man is supposed to do. Supposed to go chop wood, heat up the stove, and kill the deer and feed the family, which pretty true, right?
Mhm.
That's life 101 as a man. But I remember there was so I like ice cream a lot. Maybe there's some people that like and some people that don't, but my wife once asked me, what's up with the ice cream? Like, why you have to go and eat somewhere? So I said, there was a time in my life when I would go to a store or buy a store, and I wouldn't go to a store because I had no money. And someone would come out of, and I really wanted ice cream because I lived in a village where, if you had if the ice cream arrived at the store, then they would say, announce that almost to the neighbors.
Who doesn't like ice cream, right?
Imagine that, like the ice cream truck shows up and all the kids run. Well, that was kind of like not just the kids, it was everybody running. So I go to the store kind of, maybe, I don't know why I went, but I just went. I don't know what it was. Maybe I shouldn't have gone because I was even more angered by it. And I saw someone coming out, my age child coming out with 4 ice creams in a bag. And I was like, really? Almost talking to, to the universe saying, really, 4 ice cream? I can't even get one? But I never went to my grandma and said, Grandma, what's up with this? I mean, can I get a quarter to, 25, whatever the cost was back then, to get an ice cream? I felt like it's not that I don't deserve it. It's I cannot ask for that. I don't know why.
You wanted to earn it.
I didn't earn it, even though I worked hard, but there was no exchange. When I worked hard in the field, I would have say, soup, or I would have a piece of chicken, and that was my trade.
For sure.
There was no money. Like now these days, kid washes dishes and the father gives them $1. there was nothing like that. So then I said, I have to earn money so I can buy an ice cream, right? Or I can buy
In
two.
addition to what your
Oh,
family
oh
duties,
yeah. Well,
right?
that they're not going to pay me for that, so I
Right,
got to
right.
go earn. So back then, I was attending a music school, which by trade I'm a musician. So I play piano and accordion, and I couldn't bring a piano with me to go and earn money, so I brought an accordion with me, and I took advantage of the Christmas holidays, and I sang religious songs.
Wow.
Going from house to house.
I'm learning a lot about you.
And-
That's amazing.
And people would give me money for that.
For sure.
Like say they would be like, "Here's $1." It's a tradition.
For
it's
sure.
not something
And
I
that's
invented. I took advantage of the situation.
And I'm sure it's a blessing on both ends.
Right. So it's a tradition. So I would sing, but other kids would go sing without an instrument. I came in with a party.
Yeah.
And so I sang and played, and people give me more money because, I'm showing it goes back to the business. More value you provide, the more you're worth, right?
Nice.
Same thing with investors. So when I played and I walked till it was pitch black, I was dragging that accordion on my back through the snow, and I remember cemeteries. And I came home, and let's just say, for a kid 14 years old, today, you made $500. Maybe it's a good chunk of change.
For sure.
You can buy a lot of ice
$14,
creams.
$500 a day for 14 is quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember it was 300 of Ukrainian money, and I was so happy. I came home. I didn't hide it. I put it in a cabinet in the kitchen. Went to bed. I woke up to count the money again because I was so excited, and the money wasn't there. And I said, "Grandma, where's the money?" She goes, "What do you need the money for? You're gonna just spend it. We need to buy grain and food for the chickens, for the sheep, because we need to feed them so we can eat them." I was devastated.
Wow.
I was devastated.
So what did that do?
I think I was so angry that at that time, and I'm not angry at my grandma.
Oh, sure.
I was so angry that I started going to the wood shop and started producing product. And I went to the plazas and started selling it. Started telling people that I can make windows. If you look at the windows I made, let's just say at that age, there's no quality there. But I tried. I made doors, I made chairs, and people would pay me something. And little by little, I said to myself, I can do a business. And of course, somebody took that saddle away from me, not in a bad way. And I went to the United States. So when I landed in the United States, I said to myself, going to school and all this stuff is cool, but the urge of earning money was driven from still back then.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think in a summary, I think what I would give in this experience as a takeaway is you need to be hungry. You need to be hungry. You have to have something that drives you.
Yeah.
Something that creates a little bit of insecurity almost.
And it sounds to me like you understood very early on that life isn't fair.
No.
Right?
No, it's not fair.
Right. And you still have to persevere and overcome that.
But
right?
Exactly. You can't be saying, well, but this didn't work out. If it wasn't for this, if my girlfriend didn't do this, if my mother, you know what? I understood from very early childhood. I'm not saying my mother wasn't there. I'm not saying my grandma wasn't there. I knew I was alone.
But you understood that success solely relied on you.
Yeah, you're alone.
Right, for sure. And and that gets me into where you are today, wildly successful, right? I've seen some of the projects you've done, absolutely amazing. You can do a lot more than you are if it just was for capital, right? Because you've gotten to a point now where you have raised a lot of capital, but you can even do more because of the team you built and the expertise that you have. What are the key factors investors look for when funding residential development projects?
So if we talk about residential, number one is, and I'll quote even Grant Cardone, where He said, everybody needs a roof over their head. So what I mean by that is, and why it's a takeaway from me, is it will never stop. People will need a shelter. People will need to live. So residential, as much as a lot of investors may shy away from, residential is an ongoing thing. You need a house, and the houses don't last long. They last, let's say, 50 years, 60 years. They're not built the same way as they used to be built, where they lasted, hundreds of years made out of stone. Today we have barely any good wood to work with. The wood is not as dried as it used to be. So the product today is, as much as may look good, the product today is not really sustainable for as long as it used to be. So with that being said, um, what we look for in the development is we make sure that, as we say, it pencils first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the vision, right? You have to look at, let's say I go to a piece of property and it's all wooded, and some may think, like, how do you know what to do?
In other words, you go to a piece of property and there's nothing but trees.
Yeah, just trees. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? But I don't look at a bunch of trees. I look at the condition of the trees. I look at the roots. I look at what the branches are looking at. Um, are they thirsty, these trees? Are they very well fed with water? Sometimes when they're very healthy, that's not necessarily a good thing, because there's a lot of water underground, which means high groundwater.
These are things that you found from experience. So location is probably a factor, but not only that, the lot itself, the location.
Right. But then on the contrary, I see, some rocky stuff sticking out. Is it just here, or is it all rocky? So then the other question is, how much rock do we have? Now, rock could be used and cultivated and crushed to use the same product back into the building, but it's at higher expense. So to evaluate a piece of property is not, oh, I have 14 acres of land. What kind of land?
It's the quality of the land for construction.
Correct.
So how do you know, after taking an initial look before going through due diligence, that it's even, at what point do you know this is a development that makes sense or doesn't make sense based on, I believe the word is topography of the land and the location?
As some people say, dig baby dig.
So you have to actually dig the test.
You have to dig the test, and if the seller says no, you're not going to dig it, well, then they're not the seller for us. If the seller is not allowing us to test the soil and the conditions of the land, I mean, where are we going?
And because that would be a risk mitigation. That's a mitigation risk there for yourself and for your investors.
That's only one. The second thing is, which is probably even a bigger factor, is environmental. What is around this property? Is there a lake? Is there a marsh? Do we need to be considering peat soils? And if there's an environmental condition, what does that mean to us? Is there a certain species out there that cannot be disturbed? Let's say there's some kind of
environmental.
Yeah, some kind of beaver.
So, and it sounds like this really comes through experience.
I would say a lot of it has to do with experience, but also surround yourself with the right team. And there's no such thing in development as not spending money before you make a decision.
Awesome.
So what I mean by that is you could look at a piece of property and be like, I don't know where the wetland is. I don't know where the rocks are. I don't know where the pitfalls are. I don't know. And you need to spend money on that to figure that out.
So at this point, once you get past that hurdle, how do you communicate the vision of the project that you're looking to have investors come in with you? How do you communicate that and get them to understand what you now understand?
So past the due diligence becomes what? Underwriting. So we start underwriting the deal. We're seeing, all right, what is, and some may underwrite it differently, but I think there's only one way to do it right, is to start from the top. I look at what are the sales, And what do I need to know the sales? I need to know the comps. What are the really sweet spots of the sales? In other words, if the homes are going for $2 million on average, yeah, we'll do that. But if there's some comps that are like, say, 2.6, that's not the comp because that's the higher part of the market. So then we say, how many properties do we get out of these same, let's say, 14 acres or whatever amount of property? And how many square feet or how much acres does each lot need to have? How much road, because the roads are expensive to build? How much of the utility is going to be? So what is the infrastructure? What are all of our costs? What are all of our soft costs? Carrying costs for the debt interest and paying the investors back for their equity will really identify what the land is worth.
Okay. So
That's how we then make an offer
and
to
this is
the seller.
this
We don't. I don't look at what they're asking for. It doesn't matter what they're asking for. I'm going to offer what it's going to work for.
okay. And is this what you would call and describe as the land entitlement process? And from there, once you're past that and you do know where you're at, how do you communicate this market research that you've done to others that you need the capital to invest?
So that goes into, once we put the performer together, once we have a draft of the proper project, we then ask for seed investment or pursuit investment, which means to get us through the entitlement, or we act as a sponsor and we sponsor those services and those costs to entitle and get all the permitting done, and then we go for the round of investing, and that comes with really who wants to participate more. So, for example, if a single investor wants to participate on the entire raise, we typically share more with a single investor than multiple investors. Why? Because it decreases our overhead on certain projections and certain reports, right? So if we have to report to, say, 50 investors or 40 investors, it's a lot more work than reporting to one investor. So we try to limit the amount of investors we put in.
It's like the bulk. It's like kind of like the bulk concept. Like
yeah, it's
when
an
you're buying
economy of
anything,
scale.
Economy
It's
of
an economy of
scale.
scale. If somebody wants to take the whole deal, we would rather do that.
So speaking of that, I mean, regardless of if it's an investor funding the whole thing or a group of investors, what fundraising strategies have you found work best?
Fundraising strategies a lot of time works on really being in the circle that is like what you mentioned in the past, a club fund where there's a network of people that either collaborate together and say, all right, let's go in on this deal, or which is driven by one individual after the voting is done, and one individual is like yourself would then release the funds, or we simply go to different events and raise the funds, or we have a website on bridgewaterdevelopment.com that tells you about the deal.
Sure.
And then we don't advertise the entire deal. You would have to request our deck and all the information on the details. But we really, these type of deals are really for seasoned investors. This is not a 3 months deal, 6 months deal. This is not even many times a 24 months deal. It could take longer. But the returns, I believe, looking at our competitors, are one of the highest of all. And those are typically balloon payments.
For sure. And you mentioned networking. How important is networking in the process?
Networking is really important in the sense that, I always say, if you do something great as a plus, you multiply many pluses. You do something bad, and it goes the same way. So if you're in a community of investors and you did a good job by someone, they will recommend you to the next one and the next one and the next one. So from that perspective, network, I believe, is one of the key elements of raising funds for equity or any kind of debt.
For sure. And when it comes to mitigating risks for yourself and the investors, how do you do that?
Well, mitigating the risk, it comes in different ways. As much as I love to have the speed of the deal, because speed, again, time is money, and all sellers and deal makers want to make deals quick. I think it's important to take the step back and look into what's actually projected and what's going to actually happen. So, for example, if we're projecting to have, whether it's multifamily, we're thinking it's going to be 200 apartments, but through the process, we get 180 apartments or 160. We need to be able to underwrite it with the least amount of projections and make that deal still work. So when we do project that to the investor and show what we're looking for, we don't have an egg on our face after the deal is completed.
Yes, and you had mentioned.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
sort of vision and a lot of projections and assumptions.
Yeah, and along the way, you had just mentioned soil tests, environmental.
my
So
goodness.
all that stuff happens, and in some cases, you even wait till you have all the permits in place and all that before you actually take certain risks and have money at play.
Yes.
So that's important, right?
And there's sometimes things like, for example, you can't control. Let's say you're going through the entitlement, you entered a certain type of criteria for your debt. Let's say it's 6.5%, 7%, and we've witnessed that just in the last 3 years how the Fed raised the rate. And can you imagine if you were in 4.25 prime rate, or say 4.25 plus half, and by the time you entitled, the Fed raised it to 8.25, doubled
Wow.
the rate.
That's
So all of a
factor.
sudden your deal doesn't work.
Right.
So then what do? Well, you go back to your deal and renegotiate the deal.
Right.
Or you have to wait. Or worst case, the deal is dead.
Yeah, and I mean that's some mitigating factors because you're not really committing until you know the rate. You're not really committing fully. I mean, you may have you may in a situation like that, your stop loss because all right, we got to this point, but things have changed, and that brings me to the funding trends that have happened, and we've seen things in the world like the pandemic. So, what funding trends are shaping projects post pandemic?
Oh, that's so much to talk about, but I think what has helped us is just seeing the light in the tunnel of the Fed lowering the rates. That makes a little bit more enticing for banks to fund and increase their loan to value and loan to cost because on average you see 70% LTV, 70% LTC. But then when it started dropping to 65, 60% because of uncertainty of the Fed, that became a lot harder to do the deals, not because only the debt is more expensive, but that now the deals require more equity, which means less leverage. So when there's more equity, now you have to entice the investors to invest more. And there's always this battle, this level of how much equity versus how much debt.
Yeah, and it seems to me like when the deal has a tremendous upside, you're able to share the benefits with the investors more.
That is correct. So with that note, we are in opportunity zones mostly. So opportunity zones is not for impatient, and real estate is not for impatient. Opportunity zones are for those that understand that it's a long game. It's a long game turn, long.
And when you say long, 5, 10
years.
15 years?
So opportunity zone is written into the tax code. Actually, Trump on his second term has perfected it to permanent. So opportunity zone up until about 6 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, maybe less, was only a temporary setup. Now it's perfected. Now it's been perfected to permanent.
Wow.
So opportunity zone is not going away. It's staying.
And for those that may not know, the benefits of opportunity zone are massive.
Are massive.
Can you just talk to the key benefits of why development as a whole works, right? Development as a whole works regardless, but the opportunity zone factor, can you speak to the key benefits of that and why that makes it even more of a potential opportunity for a great project as
So
opposed to good?
opportunity zone it's got a few factors. So I'll start with the fact that the whole idea about opportunity zone is to entice the investors to that level that they will redevelop certain areas of submarket or city market, prime market, any kind of market that is zoned for those opportunities. In other words, a city or a town has zoned certain areas where they need help from
They
private
want
investors.
development.
They want development. They're basically saying, bring the money, build what you want, and we will give you what you want. And so, with these kind of opportunities, come great, strategies. And so, one is what's called 79E, which is a code, tax code in, let's say, in New Hampshire, for example. State law is that RSA 79E-8 is that if you are going to invest in an opportunity zone, of course, it has to be qualified opportunity zone fund with IRS. So you can't just go Wild West and do that, but it has to be all certain steps. Is that they will give you a tax abatement on the property taxes. So if, let's say, you're buying a property and it's, taxes are $15,000, $10,000, $30,000, whatever that is, that freezes those taxes for 5 to 6 to 7 to up to 9 years of no reassessment. So, for example, let's say you bought a property, you entitled the property, took you a year to entitle it, then you built it, took you 2 years to build it, and then you have a certificate of occupancy. From that time, so it's not from the time that you bought it, it's actually from the time that you're putting into service. In other words, you have a certificate of occupancy, you have tenants coming in, or it's a store, whatever that is, business of some kind of warehouses. And from there on, the clock starts and you're getting 5, 6, 7 years, up to 9 years of abated taxes. You're still paying the original 15, whatever I mentioned, 10, but you're not being reevaluated again, where your taxes will go up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it gives you
up
this
to 9 years. So you have the original.
break.
Yeah, you have the original tax when you purchase it, and they don't reassess or revalue the property for up to 9 years.
Up to 9 years.
So that's great, and so that obviously is a benefit to the investors because that would be an expense that's not there.
But not only that, I would challenge any investor or real estate entrepreneur that likes 1031. And I always say, I never even understood. I mean, I understand what it means, but I never understood the principle behind it, because what's 1031?
It's deferring taxes,
Right, but until when?
Until you sell.
But when you sell, there's a tax event.
You're gonna tax. So essentially,
so what are we doing? We're kicking the ball down the road.
So essentially, what I'm understanding here is this eliminates that altogether after the
Forget it.
time.
You'll never have to do 1031.
Okay, so that was number one benefit. You said there's another benefit.
But
as well?
then let's call the 1031 trap. So you're in the trap. You're constantly rolling. Your net worth is accumulating, but Jason can't take the money. If he takes the money, he has to pay IRS.
Well, what if someone was 1031ing in this trap, so to speak? Would they be able to then invest into an opportunity?
You call me,
zone
and you put 1031 into what's called QOZ, Qualified Opportunity Zone, with IRS, and you put that money in. You stay for 10 years, and you're exiting while you're multiplying your investment. Usually it's 3x, about 3.2 in 10 years. And you're getting that money plus the profit, zero.
Wow. So,
Capital
and
gain.
this is probably a great point where someone has done well. They're in a chain of 1031s that would got to be a massive tax event. And
This is a good bucket.
The consideration here is because of the sizable amount, let's say, of that investor, they can relax.
So let's just say
Into this.
it's $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, for some people it's a lot. For some people it's little. Let's just call it $1 million for now. So for $1 million, you'll be paying capital gains, upwards of 45, 47%. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden you are left with, let's call it almost half. So you had $1 million. Ooh, I made $1 million. All of a sudden you're cashing out. It's 500. Okay, maybe you're happy, maybe you're not. But I feel like it's a loss.
Your whole $1 million now with you goes in there. It works, and you're making.
And not only that, you're gonna get the $1 million, but you're also going to make the money and not have capital gains.
And after the 10 years, at the point of sale, let's say, or the maturity, they're not their money has multiplied at this point.
You're not punished,
right? And as this goes on, they're taking distributions on those tax.
That is correctly. So that's called passive income. Mm-hmm. So any preferred equity would be around 8.5% or so.
So it's a much smaller tax event, and you're getting cash flow. And then at the end, once it's sold, you're getting back all your principal plus the bonus. Wow, that's amazing. I think you've educated not only myself but the viewers, and I really appreciate you taking the time to educate us. It's really opened my mind, and understanding that development itself, in and of itself, is a massive opportunity to invest in. But adding the opportunity zone is just a game changer. And I really appreciate your time. Anything else you'd like to add before?
Well, I do want to say that for those that that perhaps are listening to this and saying, "Oh my goodness, this guy is too big for me. I don't have millions of dollars. I don't have 1031." That's okay. We have a program through a smaller term. The term can be as little as 8 months to as long as 16, to sometimes it'll go over into a little higher term. But on average, they're 8 to 16 months.
Is this opportunity zone as well?
No,
this is more on the lines of your residential development.
Correct. Okay. So this is not an opportunity zone. This is not any kind of mixed use, any kind of apartment buildings. This is simply on a residential side where we would go and buy 2, 3, 4, 5 single family homes at a time or at once, one after the other. And they could be somewhere between $600 to $1.2 million acquisition, and exiting between $2 million and $4 million, and so on.
So you have options.
So there are options. Their minimum investment that we see is on average about $150 to $250,000.
So in comparison on what you were just talking about with opportunity zones and this, on that, I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that on that type of investment, you're looking at accredited investors primarily. And on this one here, do they have to be accredited?
No, they don't have to be. No.
Okay, so this is open.
No, it's open. It's open to non-accredited investors. There's no check. It's again still personal guaranteed. It is still a guaranteed return. There are two options to do this. There's one that we prefer is no second mortgage for that debt, which is a commercial note with a personal guarantee. And there are other options which someone who perhaps is more savvy, more worried about their funds, and they want to secure it by the land. We have options to do a second mortgage. However, when there's a second mortgage option, that does not allow us to do bank debt.
Gotcha.
So then when we go to private debt, the private debt becomes more expensive. Essentially, does not allow us to do as much, does not allow us to have as much return to an investor. So
yeah, and
you could call it less risk, more risk, I guess. But both times it's personally guaranteed against the balance sheet, against personal assets of mine, and
it's backed by the real estate.
It's backed up.
And your track record. One more question, because I can go on and on, because as you answer these, I get excited.
I love this conversation.
So, can investors use trapped money, let's say, that they think is trapped in retirement plans, Roth IRAs? Is there a way that, because maybe they want to put something like that where they think they don't even have this investment, but they would like to participate. Is there a way that somehow investors can take investments from some of their traditional?
That's right. So Roth IRA, self-directed IRA. I meet many people, and it's surprising to me, which is welcoming. It's warming to see that I'm able to help people that are trapped in this so-called 401k and pension fund. But the interesting part that we can build your pension fund way faster, multiplied way quicker, 10x it in a short amount of time versus just keeping it there and depending on the stock market and maybe I made 4%, maybe I lost 4%, maybe I made 10. It's really unpredictable where you're not having a horse behind it. And I always say, let me be your horse. So let me pull the wagon. You sit in the wagon and I'll pull.
And you have the track record, the experience.
So when we take, let's say somebody has $100,000. Just say, it's not. I'm not saying it's a small amount of money, but it's it's $100,000
for someone that could be a sizable investment.
Right. So let's just say they go in, and we have an attorney that handles this. So this is no like somebody who's not qualified doing this, and this is as they say, you can't borrow to yourself in 401k. You have to lend that to somebody else.
So they just make sure it goes through the right channels.
Correct.
It's sent the proper ways to be legal and done
and
in
then
the way.
it returns to the same fund, and then let's say you want to go on a second term and third term and so on. And
then in a Roth, for instance, this is it's not.
There's no non-taxable. That's right.
So someone with a Roth. So
let's say you have 100,000, and then we pay typically 30% ROI on 60 months terms. So you have 30,000 coming back, right? So now you have 130. You deploy 130. You get, say, 40 something. I don't know off the top of my head. And it comes back as 170. You deploy 170. So it's really compounded interest.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So by the time you do this 10 times, again, not going to...
that could be over 20 to 30 years, but...
10 times would be, 16 months, 10 times would be 116 months. You divide that by 12 months. Yeah, you got like 6 years or so.
Oh, that's
7 years.
So in 6 years, you could 10x.
Maybe. So you're looking at, probably about $500,000, and you could have been sitting there only seeing little drips, if that.
Yeah, and
maybe 4%, maybe Roth, 5%.
It's grown tax.
And again, no tax. It's not so. So basically, we took your $100,000, used it, but at the same time built up your equity in your own net worth, and then when you retire, or whenever you decide to do, you'll be taxed on it depending on what your income is. But not 100,000, or maybe you'll have 150, or maybe you'll have 200, maybe. With us, if you stay with us till you retire, you could have $1 million.
And if someone has a Roth IRA with, let's say, 500,000, they don't have to do. They could do 100,000 of that.
Yeah, they don't have to do it all. I always suggest they don't do it all.
Amazing, great talk. It was really enlightening. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers did, and I really appreciate your time. Anything else to add before we wrap it up? But I think you covered most of everything here, and this is just really...
I did cover. I think there's one thing that I've always was passionate about is loyalty, and I feel like if there's a good friend and he's loyal, that's of value. If there's an employee who's passionate about the brand, loyal, stands up for the product and model, that's value. And if the investor is loyal to our fund, that's valuable to me.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have a lot of repeat investors.
You have to be worth it to be treated with loyalty, right? Yeah. Loyalty is not free, but so for loyalty, we have a loyalty program. So what is that? So let's say you do the same Roth IRA, 100,000, and you're getting a return. If you invest with us over and over, you're getting 1 point in, 1 point out. So
Wow.
1% in to commit to the next term. And as you come out, you're getting another one.
Wow. And that can really
So
multiply.
technically not 30%, 32.
Wow.
But you have to
Amazing.
stay in. You have to stay in.
Yep. Nazar, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And the best of luck to you and the future prosperity of you and your investors and your fund. And I can't wait to see some of the future developments and builds that you do.
It's awesome. Thank you very much.